So I'm here with 2/3 of Dodo Ink. It's a new indie publishing company which aims to publish 3 to 4 books a year starting in 2016. And their novels will be bold, daring, risky, but accessible literary novels. And as I say, the sort of books that big publishers used to take on, but don't anymore. Here with Alex Spears.
Hello.
And Sam Mills. Alex has lots of experience in the book industry, having worked in digital and marketing presses, including Constable Robson, Pluto, and Eliot and Thompson. And Sam Mills is an award-winning novelist, published by Faber, Corsair. Her latest novel, The Quiddity of Will Self, was published in 2012 to great reviews. So, to get started, from one publisher to another, why?
Well, it all began when the novelist Tom Tomaszewski, who's a reviewer for The Independent on Sunday, and a friend of mine, he wrote a novel called The 11th Letter, and this book was quite hard to fit into a category because it's a ghost story, a love story, an exploration of psychotherapy, because Tom is a psychotherapist, and it's a very compelling read, but it's quite quirky.
Yeah.
It's sort of quite Lynchian, so it starts out like a ghost story and then it becomes increasingly disorientating and unsettling. And because Tom was my friend, I decided to try and help him get it published. And I sent it to some agents who sort of praised the book but said it would be a hard sell because it didn't really fit into a category, so it would be hard for a publisher to market. And it just seemed a shame that a good book was going to go to waste. And I think we'd been toying with the idea of setting up Dodo Ink, and I think that was the catalyst, the thought of we've got this fantastic book and we can get this out there.
We'll come to your list for next year. So I think you're doing 3 books, 2016. Now, as we're filming this, you're currently doing a Kickstarter campaign, which by the time this comes out will be over. You guys have reached an amazing target of £8,000, but right now you've got just over £200 to pledge. So I'm going to put you on the spot now and ask you for your 30-second elevator pitch. Go!
I think it's a little difficult to put it into 30 seconds. I think maybe this is the problem with publishing, is that we want to reduce everything to books, which can be, it's Gone Girl meets The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
When really, these books, they're more complex than that, and they require you to really, engage and think about how you're going to market them, rather than just, as we say, sort of like jumping on a bandwagon.
I guess the issue is that I've experienced as a publisher as well. I've always had to try to justify my books by comparing them to other books, which is very frustrating as a publisher because, on the one hand you're trying to promote that what you're doing is original, but on the other hand you're kind of forced into comparing authors and what's successful.
Yeah, this is a problem I actually have. Whenever anyone asks about the publishing house they're setting up, they always say, "And what sort of books are you going to be publishing?" They're like, "What sort of genres?" I suppose we'd say literary fiction, but that's just a kind of genre and a label in itself as well. So our books, they cross genres, but they're all just very, very much, individual works of art that need to be taken separately.
And have you found with your other kind of publishing friends what their response been? Do they kind of secretly compare the people who work for the big publishers, or are they more kind of, what are you doing? Which is what I kind of got when I started my own company. But
no, I think the response has been really positive, to the extent that we've been quite surprised and touched by the response, because you just have no idea how people are going to react. It must be a sign of the times, and that people are reacting so positively, that people do want something a bit different or a bit quirky.
But it kind of feels like, culture is tied to the economy. Culturally, we're in a bit of a depression, I feel, in that so much opportunities link to what's available. Which is kind of
That's
fun.
very interesting. Yeah.
Now I do have to ask, where does the name Dodo Ink come from?
Well, the polished answer was going to be that literary fiction was said to be extinct at the London Book Fair earlier this year, and that we're going to resurrect the dodo and save it from extinction. But the true answer was that I used to love drawing pictures of dodos when I was signing books, and this just became a running joke between me and Tom and Alex that I had a pet dodo, and this running joke basically became our publishing brand. So that was how it started.
It's a memorable name.
Yeah.
It's a memorable name. I think it's a memorable logo as well.
Yeah. So I should say there's a third member of Dodo Ink, Thom Cuell, who's a book reviewer and blogger, and he's been championing literary fiction for many years. So there's the three of you. So how do you work together? How does that operate? How do you operate?
Well, I'm based in London, Tom's based in Manchester, and Sam's based between the two.
Yes, I live out of a suitcase, yes.
So we mainly just work via email, just umpteen email threads, talking about whatever kind of comes to mind. But
Do you take votes on things? Is it a democratic system, or is it?
I'd say it is a democratic system. We tend to sort of just,
Occasionally it rises to violence and
yeah.
Does it?
torture.
Do you use full caps in your
Tom
emails?
can be very frightening when he's angry, so we don't like to make Tom angry.
I think it's pretty democratic. I think we tend to, just quite naturally come to a consensus on most
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
I think we have quite similar tastes in literature among
Yeah,
us.
that helps,
I think
yeah.
there's definitely a sense of a sort of a shared vision.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're publishing works that maybe other big publishers aren't taking on anymore. What's your take on the UK publishing industry?
I think there has perhaps been a sort of move towards slight conservatism by the bigger publishers, and I think a lot of the independent publishers who have been publishing some really interesting stuff, they are quite often bought by the bigger publishers.
Mm.
This leads to sort of culture of consolidation. But on the other hand, what's really exciting is all the new independent publishers which are springing up, which by virtue of being small and agile can have, I think, a more distinct identity to their lists. So I think it's a kind of move to more local, to more niche publishing.
As a writer, and I've heard other writers say this, there was definitely a shift in publishing that occurred after the recession kicked in, because there was just more money around before the recession,
Yeah.
bigger advances, more of a propensity to take risks and to give you a chance to thrive as a writer. It's definitely a lot tougher since the recession. I've noticed a change.
I think it's kind of the decline of what was the mid-list for
Yeah, right.
publishers. Like they're searching out those hits, and there's a lot of commercial pressure for them to find those hits. So I think the writers who were, had their kind of like dedicated audience selling 2,000-3,000 copies of their books when they came out. They're now struggling to get new deals. They're having to sort of reinvent themselves as genre writers in some cases,
Yeah.
just to make a living.
Or else they are going to self-publishing. I think a lot of mid-list writers have also gone in that direction, and some that I know are doing very well as well. So.
I suppose there's sort of electronic publishing as well as a sort of avenue with the mid-list authors who maybe aren't getting coverage they need. Now you've scheduled 3 books for 2016, so could you tell us about those 3 books and tell us a little bit about the story of how you acquired them or why?
Yeah. Well, we mentioned the 11th Letter by Tom Tomaszewski, but I think the novel we acquired after that, Dodge and Burn by Seraphina Madsen, is sort of quite an interesting story.
Yeah.
I think it was a case of just really perfect timing that we discovered that book.
Yeah, because she'd done an MA in creative writing at Kingston University. Tutor James Miller emailed me and said, I've got this student, she's written a novella, and I immediately thought, well, I'm not sure if we really want to publish a novella, I might not even look at this. And I kind of feel cringe now when I think about it. And then I thought, and then he gave me a link to a short story she'd written in the White Review. And this story was fantastic. Just the opening lines, the first paragraph, the prose was just so beautifully crafted, and the imagination in these first paragraphs was just so surreal and interesting. I thought, oh, this is a fantastic stylist, so I should definitely look at this. And we got the novella through, and it was just brilliant. And it has expanded as we worked on it in the editing process. It has expanded to become a full-length novel anyway. So.
Is she based in the UK?
Yeah, she is. She's an American writer, also writing from experience because the novel is quite a druggy, psychedelic road trip. She's been influenced by William Burroughs and Hunter S. Thompson, but at the same time she is writing from experience because she dropped out and was on the rave scene in Europe for at least a decade, I think. So she's writing about her experiences. But I know that sometimes that kind of druggy writing, it can result in quite purple prose or be quite trippy, or it can even be quite tedious for someone who's not interested in that kind of lifestyle. But I think she's done it very well in that you've got this quite surreal landscape, but the prose is just so controlled and it's beautifully written. So there's an interesting kind of tension between this very wild and bounded plot line and this very kind of crafty prose. And so I think it works really well in that respect. It's a joy to read her sentences.
So that's book one. We talked about Tom's, the 11th Letter. What's the other one?
The third book which next year is Wood Green by Sean Rabin, who's an Australian poet. This is his debut novel. The agent who sent it to us, she described it as being, reading the novel is akin to just being lost in a kind of a really rich community. She compared it to Twin Peaks and Father Ted, and
which is good. Twin Peaks is coming back, so
it's a good way to tie it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we fell in love with the story of two writers, the master and the apprentice, sort of learning the writer's craft.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting novel, which is much more than it appears on the surface.
Yeah,
I'd say.
It's a very funny novel as well. I think that's out of the 3 books of publishing, that's probably the most playful and comic, and perhaps the most accessible. Yeah.
Which book's coming out first?
It's Dodge and Burn's coming out in July, Wood Green in September, and the 11th Letter, Halloween.
Wow. So you're going to have a busy summer, autumn, and spring, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go away travelling during that time, so I'll leave it for, my fellow Dodos.
Delegate.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that. We're at the end of our time. But Dodo Ink, dodoink.com.